Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Talking Real Estate with Champions Real Estate Team here at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate Company. My name is Mark Wehner II, team leader here. Joining me today is Russ Williams with Williams Mortgage. So every Wednesday we jump on, give a rundown over what's gone on in the real estate world in the last week. Sorry we didn't do a video last week. I was out of town and didn't take my computer, so it was a nice little vacation. But catching up with you. So our quick tip today. So we get this a lot this time of year of, hey, we're thinking of selling our house, but we're going to wait till spring. Those type of conversations, which are great. It's great to get in touch with us as soon as possible. And that's the thing we like to do is get ahead of the game and give you a game plan of what to do maybe over these fall and winter months coming into spring. And we can, go into a whole in depth of does now make sense listing, does in spring, if you're buying, all that kind of fun stuff. But the thing I really encourage you to do, I know that the thing I always get from clients and potential clients is that, well, our house isn't ready and our house is dirty and we got, Halloween decorations up. I look past all of that stuff. The thing I like to do is make sure to make that process as smooth and easy and stress-free as possible. And if we can get in there and get a good walkthrough through the house and just kind of get a good idea of what some things that may need to get done to freshen up, any updates or things like that that you've done or thinking about doing. And then I even have my stagers come out. So that's one thing. Well, we're not going to list till next March or next April or May timeframe. Yeah, let's have the stagers come out. The stagers I work with, they do an entire notebook of every single room of your house, and it gives you ideas and things to do for each tips. And that way you have all fall, and into the winter months when you're putting things away, decorations and all that kind of stuff. And then you can kind of have that plan ready and you have something tangible that you can look at of a checklist. And I know there's some people that like those checklists, which is great. That's just my quick tip for today is if you're thinking about selling a house, here in the near future, get in touch with us. We'll come do a quick walkthrough with you. Um, Kind of give you an idea what our thoughts are. Should you do this? Should we do that? And we'll give you an honest opinion, and what's going to help you get the biggest bang for your buck so we can maximize your equity when you do decide to get that house on the market and ready to rock and roll. So that's why I say get preparation is key. Get a game plan. We'll know the scouting report of what the buyers are doing and what the market is. And, when is a good time to put that house on the market? We can go into more detail. We're trying to keep this as a quick tip. So this is a large, quick tip that we can expand on, but that's kind of the general gist of it. So let's get into what's gone on the real estate market over the last 7 days. Let me pull it up here as it All right. So over the last 7 days, we had 633 new listings go live in the MLS. We had 342 new contracts written, and we had 405 happy new homeowners over the last week. So congratulations to them. So yeah, as market goes in, we're coming into the holiday months. We got obviously Halloween this Friday, so exciting for the kiddos to get out there and get some trick-or-treating and all that stuff. So this time of year, typically we start seeing inventory go, it kind of picks up a little bit, but the buying, people don't want to move during the holiday seasons and stuff like that. But there's always, the buyers that you do have in that buyer pool are ready to rock and roll. And the things that we do here at Champions Real Estate Team is when you're thinking of selling your house, putting it on the market right now, is we can go into each specific neighborhood. And if there's houses that are on the market, we can figure out the number of showings that are happening on those houses. And what does that do for you as a seller? That tells you basically what your buyer pool is. Do you have 6 people in the buyer pool? Do you have 30 people in the buyer pool? And then, what are those prices at? If those houses haven't sold, what is yours comparable? So those are a lot of the things that we can really do a detailed analysis and research behind why we're going to price your house at what we're going to price it at, to attract the most amount of buyers. And I know last year at this time, I literally put a house on the same exact over in the Papillion area, and we literally had 7 buyers in that price point or in that subdivision that I could call. And I called the other agents, hey, how many showings have you had? And you can do some research and some, get a scout, like I said, a scouting report. And then it's one of those, if you overprice that house, and you miss that 7 people, then the buyer pool, how many more new buyers are going to be coming potentially in the market over the winter months? Maybe not that many in what I've seen in the 17 years I've been in the business. You don't want to get stagnant, that house to get stagnant on there, that it stays on there. So pricing it, and last year in that house we did it this time of year, basically we ended up with, I think, 3 offers on it. So out of those 6 people, we had 3 people that said, hey, they've seen those other houses on the market at whatever price those ones are at, see your house and see the value in your house. And we ended up getting multiple offers on it. So that's the precision, pricing that we can do for the house based off of what the market's doing, and the research and the analysis that we do here at Champions Real Estate Team is going to end up maximizing, your equity and getting you the most for your house in that buyer, from that buyer pool. So that's what I'm, when I look at, the numbers here, about a 2-to-1 ratio here of new houses going on the market versus coming off the market. In the winter, in the summer months, we're a 1-to-1 ratio typically, the last couple of years. So we're seeing more inventory. So if there's more inventory, less buyers, you got to make that house stand out, when you're selling that house. So, but yeah, that's kind of what's going on in the last 7 days. Let's look at the 30,000-foot view overview here. So we had 4,416 active listings in the entire Omaha and Lincoln MLS, just under 2,500 by one. In Douglas Sarpy County, and about 1,516 is our existing homes on the market, and then new construction's up a little bit, almost to that 1,000 number there, and then inventory, months of inventory is about 3. So that's still just about just at the top of a seller's market going into almost a neutral market, but that's dependent upon each different sector, neighborhood, pricing, price range. So specifically, like I said, when we do a detailed analysis, we're going to go literally into your neighborhood. Same thing when you're buying a house. We're going to want to know what that inventory is, what the prices are, what are they doing, and all that good stuff. So there's both sides of the coin to that. But when I'm in my coaching sessions and I'm working with my clients, you got to know what the other team's doing. So if you're a buyer, you got to know what the sellers are thinking and how they're thinking, and vice versa. If you're a seller, you need to know what the buyers are thinking in that process, so that you can formulate a great game plan to get the house that you want, whether it's sold or buying it. But yeah, anyways, let's jump in here with Russ Williams. I know today's a Fed decision day on what they're going to be doing with rates. So barring any crazy things happening, I think we're kind of par for the course where we're going. So what do you think, Russ? What are you seeing on the mortgage side?
Timing was perfect. Actually, 30 seconds to go, the Federal Reserve Bank did release their decision that they dropped rates, short-term rates by 0.25%, which was expected. The market has already priced that in as far as mortgage rates go. But for those of you that are needing to take out a credit card or an auto loan or a student loan or a signature loan, you might see some improvement in your rates because of that 0.25-point short-term interest rate drop. As I mentioned, the long-term rates have already adjusted because the Fed has been telegraphing that they were going to drop 0.25% at this meeting. And right now they're forecasting they're going to drop 0.25% at the next Fed meeting as well. Probably more importantly, though, is going to be what the Fed announces that they're going to do with their balance sheet runoff. And I'll explain what that is. Right now, the Federal Reserve Bank has been buying a lot of debt, meaning treasury bonds, mortgage bonds, etc. And they've been allowing those bonds to expire rather than rebuy new bonds once those bonds have reached the end of their expiration. There is some data to believe on the 14th of October, Fed Chairman Powell had indicated that they would start repurchasing Treasury debt rather than letting that run off. And what that means is that may be a good thing for bond prices. It might push bond prices higher, bring bond yields down, and that could help with mortgage rates. Is that a guarantee? No, we don't know for sure that they're going to do that. They just telegraphed 2 weeks ago that they plan to, and so we'll be listening pretty closely to the Fed press conference here in about an hour and a half to see what they're going to do. So that is a favorable thing. Having said that, though, mortgage rates are at their 2025 lows. And so in the event that you are thinking of buying a house, Mark just mentioned inventory is up. This is an opportunity for you to find perhaps the house that you want. Given that there is more inventory available and there are oftentimes fewer people that are buying in the fall and winter months, you may or may not be able to get some concessions from the seller. That combined with favorable mortgage rates is a great opportunity for you to get into a house this winter. And if rates do come down next year, we can always right size that rate for you. So I'd encourage you to get out there now if you have not purchased a home and get with Mark and his team to buy one while you have an opportunity. Because as Mark mentioned, as we head to the spring and summer months, we typically have a 1-to-1, one new listing with one new buyer coming on the market. Right now, that plays in your favor. So that's the advice I would give you here. Mortgage rates are the 2025 lows, and you have a chance to find the house that you want and maybe even get some concessions along the way.
Yeah, one thing about concessions too that just thinking about is a lot of buyers think concessions is like the seller's paying your closing cost. Well, truly the seller's not paying your closing costs. They're allowing you to finance those closing costs into the purchase price of the house. So if it's a $5,000, seller to pay $5,000 of buyer's closing costs, and let's just for simple numbers, it's a $100,000 house. Basically, that seller is only going to net $95,000 of the sale of that house. So basically, you're going to finance that $5,000 over the next 30 years if it's a 30-year loan at, it's your 6% interest rate. But the other thing is if you have that closing cost and you don't necessarily need to finance that in there, and you have the down payment, the initial investment in there, why not ask for, a seller buy down on your rate? Have them buy down, an eighth of percent or something like that. So that's going to save you more money. They're going to pay for that, that rate buy down a little bit, but then over the 30 years, your payment's going to be a little bit lower. You're going to have obviously less interest, and you're going to get more bang for your buck, than saving, $5,000 in my closing costs. Because that $5,000, yes, it's going to look good on your balance sheet right now, but in the long term, that $5,000 over 30 years at 6% interest, you're paying, a decent chunk of interest on that $5,000. Whereas if you can get that, if you don't need that, you can get that buy down, from that seller. Because I think some agents don't think about it. They're like, oh, hey, you got the closing cost. That's fine. Let's just get the house negotiated. But, maybe you can get it. And so then, instead of 100,000, I guess, Russ, what are typical buy downs, or what does that typically cost? Is that like 1% of the loan, or 1%? Or I guess you're on mute.
Yeah. For a 1-year buy down, are you talking a temporary or permanent?
Well, both. I mean,
yeah. On a long-term fixed rate, typically paying 1 point in discount, which each point is equal to 1% of the loan amount. Oftentimes, we'll drop your mortgage rate by somewhere in the range of 0.25%. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. On your temporary rate buy down, that 1% contribution from the seller can reduce the rate by a full percent for the first year. But permanent, maybe 0.25%, give or take, and temporary, maybe a year for a 1%. Yep.
And that's just something that it's just an option. It's a play in the playbook that we can use from a buyer's perspective, and ultimately, talking to Russ to figure out what is the best option for you. And that's why you put a team together around you as a buyer, of agents and lenders that basically know what they're talking about for all intents and purposes, and can walk you through those steps and say, hey, here's the plays in our playbook. What's best for you? And that's something that's our goal, is to give you as many plays in that playbook that you can sit down and say, what are we comfortable with? What are we not comfortable with? This makes sense for our situation. This doesn't make sense. And that's fine. That's perfectly, to me, that's what I want. I want you to have options in that sense, rather than working with an agent or a lender that says, hey, you can only do this type of financing, and that's all that I think you should do. Well, what are my other options? Well, you could do this if you did this, this, and this, but don't let that lender or that agent pigeonhole you in thinking that's what you should do when there may be other options. Maybe it delays your home buying by a couple months because you need to save up a little bit or clean up the credit. But what is that couple of months going to do in the long term, I guess? And that's like I said, what we try to do is give you those options so that you know what's best for you. And if you want to pull the trigger and do something right now, then great, let's rock and roll with it. Let's pull that play out of the playbook and let's get after it and set the best game plan to get to where you want to be. So anyways, I guess I probably taught a little bit longer. I guess since I didn't come on last week, I guess I'm just full of information and full of energy. So get a little vacation and get a little more energy. So, but anyways, absolutely love chatting with everybody. If you have any questions, reach out to us at Russ at 290-8936 or myself at 672-7670. And we will talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.